I will take you through the process of mastering this song from start to finish. This song was fairly interesting to master because it wasn't a straight stereo master that you can apply all the way through. It had a little bit more to it than that. Even before listening to the mix, I know that they're happy with the balance of the instrument, but at the same time, they're expecting some sonic improvement. They're also leaving some space for me to work and be creative. So let's have a first listen to the song.
It's raining in December, and I'm trying to remember.
I can hear that the vocals are a bit muddy and mid-rangey sounding. At the same time, they sound like they haven't been de-essed very much and have a bit of harshness to them. The level of the track is definitely on the lower side, but that's okay. It gives me some headroom to work.
Day by day, wishing on the rain that she'd stay. Rain, rain, don't you go.
When the drums come in, I hear that I can work on making the track a bit warmer and add some low end to that kick.
Wait, promise you'll be.
When I switch to the big speakers, I can hear that the very lows are a bit too much.
Don't you go away.
Now we get to the outro section of the song. It has a bit of a filter sound to it, so I'll most likely address that part separately. I hear a couple clicks at 116.
You'll be back.
And I'll also hear that the start of the song is a little bit noisy. For the specific mastering, I got the instrumental and a cappella mix separately, which is great because it's going to help me tweak things a bit more in depth and get to a better result. For my setup, I always print my masters in Pro Tools rather than doing an offline bounce. So I have the pre-master mix, the a cappella, and the instrumental all going to the mastering aux. The aux is being bussed to an audio track used as a print track. On my print track, I always have some sort of metering plugin so I can check the final level. So like I mentioned earlier, I know that I want to use the instrumental and a cappella mix versions separately rather than using the mix. So I'm going to A/B what that sounds like against the mix.
In December, and I'm trying to remember. It's raining in December, and I'm trying to remember. It's raining.
The main reason I do that is to make sure the versions were bounced properly and are the same as the mix. So I'll check different sections to compare.
Rain, rain, don't you go away. Promise you'll be back one day. Back with your flowers and.
You can hear they sound slightly different, which is perfectly normal. Most likely it's the result of the compression used on the mix bus. I think just listening like that, the stems or the versions are sounding a bit more open, which is great.
Hey, rain, don't you go away. Promise you'll be.
Also, they have a bit more low end. The next thing I'm going to do is set the level where I want it. I like to do that first because limiting has a sound and I don't want to wait to hear what that does to the track until the end.
Rain, rain, don't you go away. Promise you'll be.
As a general rule, as far as loudness goes, I go to the loudest part of the song, and using a limiter, I set the short-term level to around -8 dB LUFS.
Rain, rain, don't you go away. Promise you'll be back one day. Back with your flowers and rain, rain, don't you go.
Depending on what what the client wants, I can adjust it. But as a standard level, that's what I would do. This is a good starting point. It goes a bit louder momentarily, but it looks good otherwise. Now that I have the level that I like, I'm going to add some gain to the pre-master mix so I can compare what I am doing to it.
Rain, don't you go away. Promise you'll be back one day. Back with your flowers in May. Rain, don't you go away.
And switch between input monitor on and off. I use clip gain. Looks like I'm about 5.5 dB and this will work. So now I'm gonna start to do an overall multiband and EQ before I start looking at the individual stems.
Rain, don't you go away.
I love using the Waves WLM multiband. Here I'm using it very slightly, boosting the lows a touch and lowering the mids. I'm adding a little highs and lowering the harsh area we're getting from the S's. So you can see the multiband is a little bit acting as a de-esser. I know I'm going to need to de-ess the vocals a bit more on the stem. The multiband compressor, I like using it, touch things a bit and control frequencies that poke through a bit too much. Next, I do a general EQ. I always use a high-pass filter to remove anything that's too low and that would make a car speaker system or subwoofer go crazy. To do that, I switch to my big speakers, listen for that specific spot that I know, and like that I remove that unwanted subbiness. It's really about knowing your speakers and how they're gonna translate. I'm going to try to address the vocal issues. I'm gonna filter some of the lows.
Be back one day, back with your flowers in May. Rain, don't you go away. Promise you'll be back one day, 'cause I can't stand the sun today.
For a more pop sound, I would most likely cut more of it, but for this, I think 60 Hz sounds good. Also, it doesn't sound too far from the reference. Next, I'll add the de-esser to smooth things out a bit.
Don't you go.
I don't want to go too aggressive. You don't want your singer to start sounding like he has a lisp. So comparing to the premix, I'm noticing that my vocals are getting a bit too loud.
Back one day, back with your flowers in May. Rain, don't you go away.
Now I'm gonna add a C4 multiband compressor to the instrumental track because I want to try to open up the sound even more, but without touching the vocals. I feel like the track could use a little bit more warmth and a little bit more sparkle.
Don't you go away.
Now I'm going to look at that ending, that outro part. I'm gonna have to process it separately. So the vibe is to get something filtered with a little bit of a darker sound. So I duplicate the stem. Now I'm tweaking the EQ to match a bit more the reference of the original mix.
Don't you go away.
Last thing, I'm adding a fade at the beginning to clean up the entrance a bit. I'm gonna add a fade at the end. I clean up those clicks I heard earlier.
You'll be back.
I'll export the WAV file to the client's requirements. Now it's ready to upload to streaming platforms. So I hope you could follow along the broad stroke of mastering for this track. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you on the next one.